Hey guys, welcome to the Mimo Podcast. Today we're receiving Mohak from Claystack, and it's a little bit different from what we've seen so far. Like we don't really have like such like I would say rising protocols that are not live yet that we are talking to and all that. But we thought it will be a great opportunity to let you know like earlier in our plans who we're going to be working with, because there's something very interesting with Claystack is that the project is really just finished fundraise. It's pretty solid tech, and it's not something that you guys can appreciate yet. But we thought that it would be interesting for anybody who follows Mimo to understand who we want to work with and why we want to work with them. Because really, there's something interesting about the assets that those guys are working on, and what exactly they will be producing. I will let Mohak pitch that, and it's and we do believe there is a lot of value in the community understanding this, because at the end of the day, Mimo wants to only work with people we can trust, and one of the way everybody in the community can trust people is to have transparency, not only from a protocol level, but also from the fact that, well, you can actually meet and grasp who those founders are. So, well, it's in this context that we're letting Mohak come and introduce himself and introduce Claystack to the Mimo Podcast. Please.
Thanks for having me here.
Thanks you for coming.
So about me, I was born and brought up in India. Have been very interested in finance since very young age. My dad was a stockbroker. So have been analyzing companies since I was 8 or something. Then started my first startup when I was 16 in e-commerce space, where I was selling garments all over the world. Did that for a year or two. Then went to college to pursue my education in computer science engineering. There participated in a lot of hackathons. Won some of them. Got funding.
Don't worry, you have water if you want to breathe.
Got funding by Green Capital for some of them. Then after college, got opportunity to work with multiple companies, but wanted always to do something where I could make some impact. So joined or worked around 4 years in education technology space. During the same time, I was involved in traditional trading, then started consulting hedge funds and option hedging models. So I got a chance to work in like finance side of things, but at the same time, I'm a programmer by education. Then late 2016, got to know about blockchain. Was trying to mine Bitcoin using my laptop, which was obviously impossible at that time, but I was trying to be cheap. I still don't know why. Then 2017, started investing into ICOs, got to learn a lot, started with a very heavy research approach. Even though I was researching a lot, was very picky in terms of which projects I was investing or getting involved with, but like everything was just going up in 2017, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of hype on the market as a whole, irrespectively of the quality of the project sometimes.
Yeah. So no false pre-competence there. In 2018, I left my full-time job, started my fund to invest in early stage projects. Initially started as fund, but then later transformed into a staking as a service model, where I started running validator nodes for a bunch of networks.
Yeah. I see. A little bit like Sam that you just met right there.
Yeah. So by the end of 2019, I was running around like 70 validator nodes on a bunch of networks. Got a chance to work with a lot of founders and companies at super early stages, helped them a lot in the initial days of the network. Also got a chance to work on my security infrastructure so that none of the node was ever slashed or hacked.
Yeah.
Then 2020 started helping projects and designing token utility, token governance models. But then I was thinking to take rest for a bit, which I did not take for the last 3-4 years. But then because I was so involved with staking, one of the biggest challenges in staking is lockups. That whenever you stake your tokens, your liquidity is gone. And as humans, we want freedom in our life. If there is a lockup, we don't want to get involved in that thing. So that was the tipping point to start Claystack. Started in late 2020.
Yeah.
Did a fundraising round last year, raised from a lot of great investors. And since then have been working on building the protocol, the architecture and launch.
I see. I love how humble you are by not name dropping the investors, but that's cool. That's cool. It's all right. You don't need to drop who's invested. Just so you guys know. I mean, you can just Google it, but that was a pretty savagely hot round. No, so that's cool. You're losing the headphones. Don't worry. Here you go. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So essentially, you went from like a fund to staking nodes, and then realizing that you don't want this lockup thing. Just so you know how aligned we are. Like the whole point of, I mean, the way the Mimo protocol is built is that we want like this whole staking thing for some assets, and we want to allow people to do more with what they stake, right? I mean, our goal is, the way the protocol works, like you stake something, it is locked in the protocol, and you are issuing stable coin against it. So then you have debt to the protocol and all that. But the whole goal is essentially to provide liquidity from staked assets, right? So that's something that, just like you mentioned, like we don't want to lock people in positions in such a way that they can't enjoy liquidity. Even if for us the goal is to issue something stable, so more as a form of a debt. But we do see, I mean, the moment you told me you were working in liquid staking, we felt like, well, this would be super convenient, because essentially, like, if everybody's going on the proof of stake model and people want to validate, you have this whole infrastructure where people can't use the asset that they're staking. So you have some people doing liquid staking, which gives some form of interest, and those tokens could be used as collateral or something like that. This would be exactly what we thought about. So we thought, well, damn, that's cool. Let's see what we can do with this guy, because I mean, it is in principle something that we would really like to work with. So can you describe us a little bit the way Claystack works?
Yeah, of course. So right now, if you want to stake any token, what you do is you go to any staking dashboard. You have to select which validator you want to stake to. You have to do your due diligence in terms of like various factors, what is the uptime of this validator, how long this validator has been staking for, does this validator has any slashing history. Once you have selected the validator, then you stake your tokens.
Yeah.
Once you've staked, then you cannot use those assets.
Of course.
Anytime you want those assets back, you have to wait for unbonding periods.
Yeah.
And during those unbonding periods, you don't earn any rewards. And that itself is so much friction that you don't want to kind of even stake at the first place.
Yeah.
So how it works at Claystack is that you bring any of these stakeable tokens, let's say Matic, you come to Claystack, you deposit Matic, let's say you deposit 1,000 Matic. In exchange for 1,000 Matic, you get 1,000 CS Matic.
Yeah.
Which is the token issued by us, which is a yield-bearing token. In the back end, we stake these Matic to the professional validators out there. Eventually, the validator list can be very large. And then as we start to receive yields from those delegations, then the exchange rate between Matic and CS Matic goes up.
I see. Yeah. I see. That's pretty cool. So essentially, you let the market decide the price of CS Matic.
Of course. Yeah. And it's backed by like real reserves of Matic, right?
Of course.
So like CS, by being the holder of CS Matic, one, you're earning stable yields.
Yeah.
It's a completely fungible, transferable token.
Yeah.
So that's the like level 1 effect. And then when we talk about like the level 2 or level 3 effects, then it becomes more and more crazier.
Yeah. So, I mean, from what you're describing, there seems to be a couple critical points in this. Like the first is, how do you maintain the validators? Like, do you validate yourself, or do you have another layer of the protocol that works with different validators? Like, how can you, let's say, if I was to come and stake, or if I was to see if I want to trust those CS tokens, like essentially how do you take care of that part, the validation part? Like, what's your model here?
Yeah. So one other thing we wanted to ensure is that eventually when protocol becomes too large, then we will have a lot of like delegation power. And we want to make sure that the stake remains decentralized instead of like one single or a few single validators.
Exactly. This is where I was going. Yeah. I was like, aren't you centralizing the network a bit? Right. No, that's cool.
So actually one of our proposition is to decentralize the network. If you see the early days of proof of stake, what happened was that all these stakeable tokens did not have any other use case apart from staking. So for people, the most natural thing was just to stake these assets. But now, as DeFi happened, now people have to compete between do we want to stake these assets or do we want to
use them on DeFi platforms?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the dark side of that is that as more people unstake these assets, the overall staked percentage on the network goes down.
Yeah, which is not as good for decentralization.
And also, yeah, exactly. And also, the attack vector on that particular network becomes very, very high.
Of
Because
course. Yeah. Less tech asset, less people validating, like more risk for the network. Yeah, of course. It's pretty fairly logical.
So that's where, like, if you don't have to compete between DeFi and staking, rather stake all these stakeable assets and then use synthetic versions of these assets in DeFi. Then that way you can maintain one network can maintain a very high level of security.
Essentially, what you're doing is allowing stakeable assets to play the money Lego game.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, that's cool. I'm glad I found a way to pitch your startup. You owe me something. I'm kidding. So that's really cool. It's let's say you have all the validators at first. So in order, first you will validate yourself and then grow to a different layer, list of different validators, or do you is it what's the order of things? What's the map on this?
Yeah.
one?
So in the beginning, we will work with professional validators because there is a slashing risk, obviously.
Of course.
And we want to make sure that none of these assets are ever slashed.
Yeah.
And I mean, slashing has been discussed theoretically a lot of times, but practically none of the professional validators ever get slashed. Because everyone has built good infrastructure. But as I said that we don't want to stick to a few validators out there.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, we won't be the only validator actually.
That's good.
Actually, we won't be running even one node at Claystack. That's the decision that we have made.
Do the users of Claystack have a view of who are the validators?
Yes, of course.
That's great.
That's the beauty that it's not a black box, unlike decentralized platform that you're putting these tokens for staking return. You don't even know if these returns are coming from staking or Ponzi.
Yeah. You because a lot of people by nature of wanting to simplify models tend to design black boxes, which we're coming from DeFi, so we tend to believe that this is not the way to do. But we can't blame people for the designs that they're having. So we're glad to hear that also Claystack is not a black box model. That's pretty good. It's good to hear.
Yeah, everyone can see what reserves we have, where each and every token is flowing. Yeah, so everything is on chain.
That's great. And which layers do you plan to support at first? You were talking Matic earlier, because I know. This is how we even started our own first conversation. Yeah. You say we do liquid staking and we're gonna support Matic. I'm like, that's great. We have some traction on Polygon, so why not do something together? But so, what other chains do you plan to work with?
Yeah, we have interest from a lot of layer ones. Including grant support. We have great relationship with a lot of layer ones. But one of the things that I've learned in my experience in DeFi is that if we try to focus on everything, we end up focusing on nothing. So what we want to make sure is that we nail one chain very well.
Yeah.
We have recently launched Graph Testnet as well.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of more in pipeline, but that will be announced in due time.
Oh, sure. No worries. No pressure on announcements here. It's really more to see how flexible is the platform. But you intend eventually to be really you do it well, secure the whole thing, and then expand.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand. This is pretty much what we did at Mimo. We were on Ethereum only for a long time, even though people were asking. And then ship Polygon, recently ship Phantom, and now we're expanding little by little because you need to gain trust and you need to make sure things are working. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not like Web2 where you kind of take a very slow iterative approach where, for example, you have to launch with a bang. So you have to make sure that is secured very well. For example, whenever someone asks me that, hey, let me know when you guys launch, I'm like, if I have to tell you when we are launched, then we have failed in our mission.
Yeah. Of course. That's the thing. Talking especially about security, most people in the space, everybody in the space goes through audits for this purpose. And you mentioned to me last week that you were going through audits and all that. Is it possible to share some of the name of your auditors, or is it a public? If you can't disclose, no worries, don't worry.
Yeah, we are waiting for the final report. So until that comes in, we cannot disclose the name, but the preliminary audit that went through.
Yeah.
Mind you, this is the first public audit or first audit that we ever went through.
Okay.
There was 0 critical bugs. There was 0 high severity bugs, 0 medium severity bugs.
Okay.
So I feel very proud with the team that we have built something very secure.
That's cool. Talking about the team, how many of you guys there?
We are still, I don't know, people will call it a small team or large team, but I still feel we are a very small team. We're just 9 people.
Oh yeah, 9 people for something pre-launch is actually pretty sizable. That's good. Yeah, like what's the distribution of people? Like you have more people like coming from a tech background, or people coming from, I would say, more of a marketing background. Like what exactly is the composition of the team behind Claystack?
Yeah, so right now we have 5 people in engineering team, 2 in design, 1 in content marketing, and 1 in community. That's it.
Okay, where do you count yourself in that?
Yeah, I tend to kind of obviously work in like a little bit in everything.
Yeah.
But mostly like I want to focus a lot on research, because eventually what's going to happen is that every liquid staking protocol who is just like, or every DeFi protocol, what happens is like you launch the protocol, like you know how easy to fork something in DeFi, right? The only thing that creates a sustainable model is creativity.
Yeah.
So a very ecosystem heavy approach where we do a lot of internal research around different protocols where we can integrate, what we can build to make more use cases of these tokens that we are issuing.
I see. Like so again, like the first use case that we're discussing here is the use of some of your tokens as collateral potentially. I mean, it's all subject to like a further analysis and all that, because we want to make sure everything is clear. But that's the use case that we're talking about now. Like care to talk about some different use cases that you would like to see?
Yeah, of course. So like just to expand a little bit more about the use case that you're mentioning. So for example, right now, if someone comes in, they deposit, let's say Matic, they get CS Matic. And this is applicable for any other supportable asset as well. So they get CS Matic, they go to any lending borrowing protocol, they deposit, let's say CS Matic as collateral, and then they can borrow funds that they can reuse in any other farm, any other DeFi. So let's say if the vanilla return on CS Matic is 9%, but then there is a way to earn additional yield out there. And then the money Lego that can be built on that is kind of infinite, that
of course.
we cannot even envision right now.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, essentially you could go to like to a protocol like Market or Aave, and then like essentially like have a second layer of interest bearing token, because you have people borrowing that asset, and you can even put that interest bearing token that is now like compounding to interest into a protocol like Mimo or something like that, and then you can use the liquidity twice with something that keep appreciating, so then you can mint more and more power over and over. I mean, this is pretty interesting. Like what you're doing is pretty cool, and it's we do believe that it's great. Now it's
and there is no liquidation risk at the level 1. Like CS Matic will never get liquidated because it's backed by.
It's backed by one Matic.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's that's the thing of staking. So just to be on the other side, just to open the conversation, some people are mentioning that liquid staking is not necessarily a good thing for platforms, because essentially if it's liquid staked, it's like it was not staked or something like that. Like, what do you think of this type of opinion? Like the fact that there is less how to explain the friction that was supposed to be brought by staking, and the whole point of the price growing up and stuff like that is not happening with the liquid staking. Some people are saying that. I mean, I have a different opinion, but I just wanna know what somebody behind the liquid staking platform has to say to this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, one of the focus, like for any network, the focus should not be to increase the price of their token, right?
Exactly, I understand. Yeah.
So the focus of the network should be to make network as fast as possible, as secure as possible, and as user-friendly or as developer-friendly as possible, right?
Yeah.
And the more anyone tries to restrict this, it cannot thrive. Now, I have seen people who are not very positive towards liquid staking in the early days, when they did not understand liquid staking, including layer 1 chains.
Especially layer 1 chains.
Yeah, but then the argument is that, dude, this is happening. Like, you cannot stop it, right?
Yeah.
The only way you can do it is to shape it in the best possible manner to work with us, rather than.
So then those things are secure.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because like I mean, if the L1 is working with you into building something that is like by design, like okay for liquid staking, then you have a simple way to essentially guarantee that you don't need some like liquid, like some generation event or whatever, like that needs to be trusted. You can work in a trustless manner if the thing is there by design, which is much better in my opinion.
Exactly. And even like in some of the conversations in the early days, we heard from some of the layer 1s that why don't we do it at protocol level itself? And the argument to that is that, again, like that should not be any network's focus. Like, where does it stop? Today building liquid staking, tomorrow AMMs. day after tomorrow any lending borrowing protocol. The idea of the network is to let other people build these use cases, because for a network, it's just one feature. For us, it's survival. We have to make it work.
Yeah. It's I mean that's the point. Like some chains are trained to bundle in a lot of cases directly inside the chain, and what we've seen so far is pretty successful in my opinion. I mean, some people like Sam might know a little bit more. Like just so you guys know, we have a lot of people in the room here. We have like some people who do a lot of work with different L1s and all that. So that's cool. But from what we've seen is that like the more focused the network is on being a network and really like just something like I would say program agnostic on the top of it with more people working, the better it tends to be. So yeah, people like companies like yours can focus on building let's say liquid staking or AMM infrastructures or whatever they build on top and compete against other stuff and then have something, because by the moment something is built into a network, it kind of kills the competition. And then it makes that they have to do it right and better than whatever something that would have been built by a company that needs to survive and all that. So I understand it's a different model. Coming from Unix world, I tend to prefer things that do one thing well, like especially at the protocol level. Even though from application layer you want things that do more, but at protocol level, one thing well and multiple things together tends to work pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing in crypto, that once you start developing something, then you start seeing so many use cases that you can yourself build. But that's where the collaboration comes in. Like DeFi or you cannot build everything on your own, even though it seems like doable, but it's not.
Yeah, and even then, even if can you think about it from a protocol perspective? Sometimes you can, but now if you think about it from a token holder perspective or from the perspective of somebody like using the protocol, you're like, do I want my governance token to be diluted in all those use cases and stuff like that? How is the market going to represent the value of the governance token if it can do 20 things? It's very likely that you have something that will not be actually very efficient from a market perspective. And I mean, again, it's just an opinion here, but I do understand and I think agree with the fact that it is better sometimes even just to spin a new project, a new thing, so then you can grow a new community focused on a use case. It tends to work better for community holders and for project owners. Yeah. So that's cool. It's great. Now, it's one thing I wanted to ask, because this is something we ask on this podcast all the time. Like, what is it to work at Claystack? It is because, again, just to set some context, we work with partners, we bring them onto this podcast, and we want to know two things. First, like, what is the project, what does it do, and all that. But then the more human side of things, like, if somebody was to work with you tomorrow, like what would they see? Like what would be a normal day working with Claystack? Like, are you guys working remote? Are you guys working mostly like all together in a room? Like, what is it?
Yeah, it's a completely remote organization right now. And we are very, I would say, technical and creativity focused. For example, before kind of jumping into that, I'll give you an example that when we were supposed to launch the testnet, we were thinking of let's launch with 500 users. So we announced that we're going to launch soon. We got 22,000 users in the wait list. And then
that's a low-key flex, man. That's great.
And even though we could have just launched that testnet with those 20,000 users, but then users see so many protocols launching every day, right? The attention in DeFi is very, very hard to get. Probably most of the users are ADHD anyways.
It's not ADHD, it's that the industry is too good, man.
So that's where we thought that let's make it let's launch it in a gamified manner. So we started thinking about it. Everyone got together, started thinking of ideas. Then we launched it with a game that was from ideation to execution. It took 5 days.
That's great.
And everything was on chain. Everything was done via smart contracts.
What was the game?
So the game was very simple. There were 18 images. Out of those, you are assigned 5 randomly. Okay, and according to your waitlist number, let's say your waitlist number is 25,000. So you have to collect those images worth up to $25,000 in order to use the app. And the price of all those images were very dynamic.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You were asking people to play Pokemon with your images.
But on testnet.
I see. That's pretty cool. So like people had to just like go over, trade some of these images and find something to
exactly
25,000. Okay, yeah.
I mean, they had to collect these images every 2 hours. So we were thinking, let's launch an escrow contract so that people can exchange these as well. But then we're like, oh, let's hold for a bit.
Let's chill a bit. I see.
Let people kind of enjoy. Let people exchange. Let's see if people are trying to scam each other on testnet or not.
Yeah.
And
What
to our
did
sup-
happen?
No one kind of scammed each other. But the way it worked was like people made so many friends because they exchanged so many tokens with each other.
Yeah.
And we did not even had to get involved. So a lot of people kind of loved doing it. The waitlist grew from 22,000 to 66,000.
Wow.
And then we had to shut down the waitlist. That
Guys, this is too much. It's okay. Yeah, you will be able to stake your tokens.
yeah. So the first was Onega. Then we launched Malawi. Now recently we launched Victoria. And then so now coming to what it is like to work at Claystack. So one, no matter at what role you are joining, whether it's technology, whether it's design, marketing, content, community, you will have to become a very power DeFi users. Like we'll force you to become one.
How do you do that?
Yeah, so one, like we'll give you protocols, go learn this protocol, tell me what it works.
Yeah.
We'll make a a chump change wallet where we'll put like all the tokens out there that use it on this chain, use it on Ethereum, use it on Polygon, use it on Avalanche. Start using DeFi, become power user of DeFi. Without that, you cannot actually develop anything very well in DeFi. So that's one.
Very good, very good. Like just so full disclosure, I'm actually designing something for the people working at Mimo to get more into DeFi and to become power users. And this is why, like, when you say you did it, I'm like, well, yeah, maybe I can pick a thing or two from that. Like, I will ask you offline, like, in a couple of, maybe we can exchange some tips.
For sure.
Like, we're doing a of a game actually, like for
nice.
things. Yeah. It's it takes time, but because I have 25 things to work on, just like you. But I do agree 100% with what you're saying. Like, when you are at the protocol level in DeFi, you want, especially when the team is like very small, like 9, like you are right now. You want everybody to understand what you're doing. Like it's you can't even let's say a designer comes in and the person wants to do some nice illustration and all that. If the person does not really understand DeFi, there is a very strong chance that the visual tools that they use to communicate whatever you're doing are not going to match what the target audience wants to see. Right. It's it's at the end of the day, no matter what you do, the industry is young enough that you can actually grasp the entire industry rather quickly. Right. And you want everybody in your team to do that. So then they speak the same language. They do the same thing. So I totally understand and I agree with you. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
And no one at Claystack works in isolation. Everyone has to collaborate. So like, because we are still so early on the team size and I don't have any intention to make it like 100 people team anytime soon. I'm a big believer that we don't need we don't need a large team to achieve large things.
Because you need a strong team.
Yeah. Exactly. We need a very strong, driven and motivated team. So anyone who will join right now will make a huge impact.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So, I mean, again, like on this exact topic, now that you mentioned like what it is to work at Claystack, what you need to do when you work at Claystack, is there any type of profile that you're looking for right now?
Yeah, of course. We are looking for smart engineers out there.
Yeah.
We're looking for great designers. And if you have very strong context on marketing, and Web3 marketing works very differently from Web2 marketing.
Yeah.
It's not about like running ads on LinkedIn or Twitter, right? So if you understand content very well, if you understand narratives very well, then come work with us. One thing that I can assure is that even if you're coming from Web2 background, as long as you're smart, that learning at Claystack will happen at steroids.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. It's that's the thing when joining a small team. Clearly, like it's not only about the size of the team; it's also about like how old the project is. And the earlier the project, the more things you would have to do, and therefore, like the more you can learn. So of course, like it's learning on steroids. Like the project is new and all that. I think I'm really really glad to hear that. It's you mentioned you're looking for engineers. Is there any specific technology for the type of engineer you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to get like Solidity engineers, but we are not very, very focused on that because, as I said, that we want great engineers rather than someone who just know like one technology or one language. Because any smart engineer who has done well, they can learn any new tech very, very fast.
Yeah, of course. And especially like, again, just like because the industry is young and all that, like those things tend to be rather fast to learn. Like it's, let's say you wanted to dominate C++ tomorrow, it would take you like a very long time. it would take you a shorter time to dominate in Solidity, right?
Yeah.
It's that's a good thing. So you can really still rely on how smart the people are,
Right.
and all that. I 100%
Like if they understand
agree with
data
this.
structure very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For people who are not technical, what he means by data structures is not only about putting things in boxes and all that. It is a word for CS people. Yeah. So that's great. Like I agree. I mean, I'm more of a data structure and algorithm person originally. Like and I do agree that once you come from there, then you can branch out to the rest like super easily. And
Exactly.
I'm more into data structure than algorithm. In my opinion, algorithms come from data structure. Some
course.
people say the other thing, but like everybody has their own way to see things. So glad to see that somebody else shares his opinion. That's great. Another thing is like is this? I mean, is there any for exploring like a lot of projects that want to go on multiple chains and all that, really want to focus on everything EVM and all that. Do you picture yourself working with like different non-EVM based tech in the future?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that liquid staking or staking itself market is like so large
Right.
that we want to dominate obviously at EVM first. We have been building architecture for some of the non-EVMs, but more at R&D stage.
Yeah.
So as I said, like we want to do something where we have a lot of expertise where we
Yeah.
can execute very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So nothing is like constrained. That's the
Yeah.
beauty of DeFi, that your audience is global from day one. You're not filtering any users in the sense of their persona or anything. You're not filtering any chains. So we're very agnostic. Yeah.
That's great. It's very important. I mean, the reason why I'm asking all these questions is for people to profile. Like, okay, I would like to work with Claystack. How would it go? Like, I only know Solana. Will they understand me and all that? And then I think it's great. Like,
As long as like I think there's just like three qualities that if you're smart,
yeah,
if you can go all in as in like not about like bad work-life balance.
I don't want to sleep anymore. Like,
No, have a great work-life balance, but like very focused towards growing the protocol. So smart, all in, and team spirit. That if you work or if you're great or if you're someone that who work amazing in isolation, you might not be able to work very well at Claystack.
Yeah.
You need to collaborate with people. So if you're a team player, then we'll welcome you with like open hands.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, again, like there are some, in my opinion, there's like, I would say, different stages where companies can take different type of people. And when you're in early stage, you need team players. When the thing is very mature, then you can have a lot of like different rails for different tasks where loners can actually like really crush it, because you have a lot of things where individual contributors can work in isolation and ship like a specific task and all that. But that requires a level of maturity in the development of any project that is like not something you have at that early stage. So I totally understand. Like it's a thing like early stage companies. For any developer listening to us right here, it's if you want to join an early stage company, if you want to join one of these early protocols and get your tokens early, like everybody wants to do, you want to be a team player. Like it is, if you want to contribute to, say, I don't know, Ethereum today and all that, like, well, of course you can be collaborate in isolation and work on one single task for a year or something, but in general, like it's a small protocol, really more focused on the team. So that's really good to hear. I love hearing the way you're developing that. It's pretty cool. all good. So now, like, I mean, now that we've kind of like looked around, one of the things I want to ask before we close we close this one is, what would be the next, I say, in the next the next quarter, to like before the summer, like what are the things that you would really want to see happening at Claystack? Not asking you to commit to any deadline and all that, more like, okay, like before summer arrives, we would really like to have this and that launch and all that. Like, is there anything you can tell us?
Of course. I mean, one of the first laser focus is to launch mainnet.
Yeah.
Second is to build liquidity of these synthetic assets.
Yeah.
Third is to make these assets usable in DeFi.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would love to see all of that happen in the next quarter itself.
That's great. It's just so I mean, you did touch on the point that matters a lot to us. How do you want to go about creating liquidity? Is there a plan for that? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, of course. So I mean, in terms of current AMM model, that's a bit difficult, obviously. But that's where the whole industry relies.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is we want to make sure that there is enough liquidity for let's say if you're talking about Matic, then there's enough liquidity for Matic CS Matic pair.
Yeah.
So that especially for protocols like you or any lending borrowing protocol,
That's why I'm asking.
can do very healthy liquidations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we'll maintain a liquidity pool at Claystack as well.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you can come to liquidate these assets.
Because this is also why I was thinking, like I'm thinking from the perspective of a liquidator, if your protocol is somewhat open enough, so then from a smart contract perspective, a liquidator can come and automatically liquidate the position in CS Matic against the Matic and then trade the Matic for whatever we have, like a par or whatever. Then like the liquidation can happen even though you don't have much liquidity in a Matic CS Matic pool. So I think this is cool. Like it will depend on how open your protocol is, and I'm eager to see that. Like if you want any help from a liquidator perspective, happy to work together with the team, from a technical perspective and all that. I think it could help you quite a lot, because from the liquidation perspective or the protocol perspective, the DeFi integration can be something that helps you quite a bit, right? If the DeFi liquidation can happen on protocol level, then we can go much faster and all that. Like, so then we can limit the need for a lot of liquidity before your integration in DeFi. So I think that's something pretty cool. The other thing I wanted to ask you, especially in the liquidity building thing, is there any specific type of AMM that you will be looking at? Because obviously the liquidity between Matic and CS Matic would benefit from some form of concentrated liquidity. I'm not necessarily talking curve, but maybe something like a little bit like maybe UniV3 and all that. Well, what are you looking at?
Yeah, we haven't announced which AMM we are going to use, but definitely it's going to be something which is very, very effective for light priced assets.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Matic and CS Matic will be very correlated, or
Obviously.
any other tokens.
Yeah.
So it's mostly around those AMMs which are very effective for either stable coins, or light price assets.
I assume you're looking at Balancer and you're looking at Curve V2. Yeah, obviously. I mean, I've been looking at the code of those things like quite a lot recently, because from a perspective of stable coin, like a protocol like Mimo, it's very important to know like what's out there on the market for price tokens or some form of concentrated liquidity. So it's I assume we will be facing the same problem. And that's great to hear that. I mean, feel free, we can exchange tips and all that.
Of course, and we want to make sure that in the beginning we don't fragment liquidity.
Of course,
we want to concentrate liquidity at one.
Yeah. I mean, for one single asset, you'd rather want this thing to trade properly. It's that trade-off between maybe the protocol where you can concentrate liquidity the most also has to be very, very well used within the ecosystem and routed through like aggregators and all that. That unfortunately, this is like always a little bit of a trade-off. Like you go on some chain, the most efficient protocol for you maybe is not routing through 1inch, so you concentrate liquidity there, but you don't really have you're not really part of the whole ecosystem and all that. It's a bit difficult. There's always a trade-off, but I wish I wish you best there. And I mean, if we find something on like price assets that we can both use, we will obviously let you know. Yeah. That's great to hear that we're sharing the same problem. This is how founders bound. We don't bound like through how much money we're making and all that. We bound from common problems. Like, hey, we found a solution to this problem. You might want to hear that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Okay, great to know. So I mean, I think what we have gone around what's gonna happen at Claystack. I'm really happy to have you here on this podcast. I think it's really good, and thanks a lot for the in-depth view on the protocol. This is really cool. I do hope that this podcast will help a lot of people in the Mimo community and even the outside DeFi community understand how liquid staking will be great for DeFi and great for the industry as a whole. And thank you very much for coming here.
Thanks. Glad to be here. It was super fun.
All right. And as always, as we always want to remind everybody at the end of the podcast, we are hiring. So if you're an engineer and if you're smart and motivated, I am so going to steal this, right? No, because we always have the same thing. You're smart, you're motivated, you need to understand DeFi. And I mean, or we can teach you DeFi. We have a little game, and we're not gonna steal stuff. No, but it's a thing. Like we're all looking for the same type of thing, and it's and as you can see, we have some pretty cool partners. So that's the thing. We're looking for engineers. We're looking for people also on the operation stage. If you work in the payment space and all that in ops, feel free to reach out. It's so I hope this conversation between Claystack and Mimo was relevant to everybody in the crowd. And again, stay tuned for more updates from Mimo, Claystack, and join us on Telegram and on Discord. Mimo DeFi everywhere. And where can people find you?
I'm available on Twitter at Mohak Agr.
All right, great. So thank you very much and cheers.